You've been a strong, powerful leader. Leaders are supposed to be strong, tough, assertive, decisive. Those are some of those words that we typically use to describe great leaders. Yet, as women leaders, you're expected to be accommodating. You're expected to be likable, not abrasive or angry. So when women take charge, they're often viewed as competent, but at the same time, they may be disliked. When women take care of others, then they're often viewed as less competent leaders. So how did you yourself manage this leadership double bind as you were going through progressing in your own career?
Well, I think I'm still managing it. So you're absolutely right. I certainly had the experience as a woman leader initially that the types of women leaders that were in the system at the time that I was sort of moving up were either one or the other. There were very few that were kind of in between. And so what I mean by that is that they were either viewed as total softies and not particularly effective, or they were viewed as very tough and very man-like, if you will. A very tough nut and unemotional and hard and not necessarily easy to work for. I've worked for both, and I actually, believe it or not, through my whole career, go back always to some of the lessons that I learned from my very first head nurse, who was a very soft-spoken little lady, very diminutive, but could be very tough when she needed to be, but also had this very soft side. And so I've always believed, and I've done a lot of reading around the power of vulnerability and Brené Brown and, all of that. And so, what I've just tried to do is I've tried as much as possible to be me, to be a real person. And my personality has been that I don't sweat the small stuff. I try to focus on the real issues. I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. But when I see a behavior or activities that directly contravene both my personal values and the values of the organization, then I can get tough. That toughness has caused some controversy before. And sometimes you don't get change without some controversy. That's just the way it is. I'm okay with now not being everybody's friend. I hope that they will respect me. I certainly like to have congenial relationships with people at all levels of the organization. And I go out into the organization and I'm on a first name basis with our housekeepers and our porters and educators and all kinds of people in the system. And I think that it's important for leaders to be human. I don't think anybody particularly is interested in following what you have to say if you're in an ivory tower or if you're considered to be untouchable. Having said that, you do put yourself at increased risk when you allow yourself to be vulnerable. And so I think it's getting comfortable with that risk. So I've tried to do that as much as possible. It doesn't mean that I don't make mistakes sometimes, and sometimes I do. And when I do, I try to be honest about them and simply apologize and hope that people will move on. It's a constant struggle, but I think that the gains of being human, of exhibiting some of the maybe more female traits in leadership, I think are worth some of the risks. And certainly research would bear that out in terms of some of the Fortune 500 companies that have female CEOs and the success that they've had, not only in terms of just being good places to work, but also in terms of their profit margins.
It's a great time for female leadership with all the great examples.
Yeah. And I feel really strongly about that. And one of the things, the activities I really, we've talked about short-term goals before, and I am getting to the point in my career where I'm starting to think about what do I do when I retire? Because retirement often isn't really retirement. You just move on to something new. And I really would like to spend some time really helping female leaders, because I think during my journey, I had some that I could learn from, but I didn't get the chance to really be with female executives as much as I would have liked to be able to learn. And so if I can help the next generation, I'd love to be able to do that.
And going back to the part where you said, I just learned to be myself. How did you discover yourself and then gain that confidence to be yourself?
Yeah, I think that by and large, how I learned to be confident doing it was that when I did it, for the most part, it brought me success. It helped me achieve things. And I don't mean for myself, but I mean for the organization. It helped me develop stronger relationships with counterparts that helped me move projects forward, for example, or move even with the staff. It helped achieve a sense of shared purpose and all of those kinds of things. But I think it is still one of those things that it works very well when you are working also with people who have no hidden agendas, who are also have integrity and to honestly want to resolve a problem. Where it is somewhat more challenging is when you encounter a situation where you are dealing with an entity or a person who may have a vested interest in harming you or the organization. That's been the times where I've had to really look at some adjustments, at least in the context of those situations. And that's hard because it means that you have to sort of adjust how you normally would approach something. The level of honesty, for example, that you would share with everyone. I'm kind of an open book, and so people know what I think and what I say. That works if that's not going to be held against you. But it doesn't work if you're concerned that anything you may say may be taken in a way that could, like I say, generate some kind of risk to the organization. Right. So that's always a challenge.
And what advice might you have for women leaders who are ambitious and they are starting their careers?
Well, first of all, I'd really say try to find a mentor. Mentors don't have to be paid coaches. I've had lots of people reach out to me and say, I've watched you in action and I like what you do. And would you mind, meeting with me every 3 months or something just to sit down and give me some advice and to hear me out and that kind of thing. I think that's really, really important. When I was in BC, I was a part of an organization called Minerva. Minerva is an organization to try to mentor young women leaders, and not just in health, but from all sectors. If you are an emerging leader, somebody who is in your 20s, for example, and in one of your first sort of frontline leadership kind of roles, join an organization like that. There's also Women's Executive Network here in Toronto. So join those kinds of things. Try to find people who think like you, who you think could really give you that advice and counsel. And that's really important because how I've helped some of the people I've coached, informally coached in the past, is that when they were ready for a job change, for example, we would talk through, well, what do you really want in your next job? And helping people as well. Sometimes people who are really ambitious, they really think about what title they want next. And I really, really dissuade people from that, because the next job for you shouldn't be about the title. It should be about what the work is going to entail. And so sometimes that means you need to make a lateral move because you've got some skill development that you still need to do if the work you really want to do is at the next level. And so that's hard for people because some people think that that trajectory should be a straight line up. Well, it wasn't a straight line up for me. It's usually a zigzag. And you can plan your zigzag really well. And sometimes it means staying in a job for a couple of years that this is not my passion, but I'm going to learn some really great things here. A great example for me was the 2 years I spent as an HR advisor early in my career. I knew I didn't want a career in HR, but I believed that I wanted to go into management and leadership and that kind of thing. And I knew that it would be critical for me to have that knowledge, to be good at that, because I saw that that was often what people struggled with in those roles. So my coaching to new leaders is don't be afraid to take on something where you have a learning curve. That's really important to do that. But try to take on a job where you feel confident that you have at least 50% of the knowledge and skills that you need to be successful, and that you feel confident you can learn the other 50%. It's in that new 50% that you totally grow. And that's where the excitement is, really. I mean, who wants to do a job where 100% of it and there's nothing new? At least for me, that's never been my gig.